The caravanserai of Shaki, often called the Upper Caravanserai, stands as a durable reminder of Shaki's role on the historic Silk Road, a large roadside inn where merchants, their goods and animals found shelter and security. The city emerged as a major regional trade center in the 18th century, after local power consolidated into the Shaki Khante. That Khante arose in the 1740s under the leadership of Haji Chalabi. Haji Chalabi Khan is recorded as the Khan in sources covering the 1740s, 1750s. The caravanserai complex now visible in Shaki was built in the same broad 18th century era that produced other local masterpieces, notably the palace of the Shaki Khans. Completed in the later part of the century, the palace's main construction phase is usually dated to the 1760s, 1790s. The caravanserai's original fabric, massive stone walls, two-tiered arched galleries around a central courtyard, storerooms at ground level and simple guest cells on the upper floor, follows the classical caravanserai plan used across the Caucasus and wider Islamic world in that period. Historical surveys and architectural inventories describe several large caravanserais in Shaki during the 18th and 19th centuries, with only two surviving to the present day. Functionally, the buildings sheltered traveling merchants and housed their goods and animals, ground floor storage and stabling, and the quieter upper rooms for rest and business negotiations. Thick masonry walls and modest fenestration controlled interior climate, keeping rooms cool in summer and retaining warmth in winter, a practical response to the region's mountain climate and long overland trade journeys. Over the 19th and 20th centuries, as caravan traffic declined and transport routes changed, the caravanserai ceased to operate in its original commercial role and gradually shifted into disuse or ad hoc local uses. In recent decades, authorities and conservation teams have carried out restorations aimed at preserving the building's traditional features while adapting paths for contemporary tourism. Today, the upper caravanserai is partly repurposed. Visitors can see the original courtyard configuration and vaulted storage spaces, and a portion of the complex operates as guest accommodation, allowing travelers to experience the atmosphere of an old Silk Road inn with modern amenities. Its proximity to the palace of the Shaki Khans and inclusion within Shaki's historic ensemble, recognized by UNESCO as the Historic Center of Shaki, with the Khan's Palace, keeps the caravanserai firmly on tourist routes and conservation agendas. Thus, the Shaki caravanserai connects a clear 18th century historical context, the rise of the Shaki Khante in the 1740s and late 18th century civic rebuilding, with a living, restored monument today, a place where visitors can see architecture shaped by trade, climate and regional history. The Shaki Khan's Palace and the nearby Shaki Khan Castle in Azerbaijan are among the most exquisite monuments of the 18th century, symbolizing the cultural richness, architectural mastery, and royal heritage of the Shaki Khante, nestled at the foothills of the Greater Caucasus Mountains. In the historic city of Shaki, the palace and castle together represent the grandeur and strategic strength of the ruling dynasty that once governed this vital region along the Silk Road. The Shaki Khante was founded in the mid-18th century by Haji Chalabi Khan, who established Shaki as an independent political center after breaking away from Persian control around 1743. The city flourished under his leadership and that of his descendants, becoming a thriving hub of trade, art, and architecture. The Shaki Khan's Palace, the most famous structure within the castle complex, was built in 1762 during the reign of Muhammad Hassan Khan, the grandson of Haji Chalabi Khan. This two-story architectural gem was originally intended as the summer residence of the Khans, despite its relatively modest size. The palace is world-renowned for its artistic brilliance and intricate craftsmanship, constructed entirely without the use of nails. It exemplifies traditional Azerbaijani building techniques that combine functionality with beauty. The facade of the palace is a masterpiece of decorative art, adorned with colorful stained glass windows known as shebeke, which were hand-assembled from thousands of tiny pieces of colored glass set into a wooden lattice. These windows not only illuminate the interior with a mosaic of light, but also serve as natural air filters, keeping the building cool during Shaki's hot summers. The interior of the palace is equally breathtaking, featuring elaborately painted walls, ceilings, and doors that depict hunting scenes, floral motifs, and geometric patterns. Every inch of the surface is covered in fine detail, executed by local artists who used natural dyes and pigments derived from plants and minerals. The ceilings are decorated with gold leaf and vivid miniature paintings that reflect Persian and Ottoman influences. Yet the themes remain distinctly Azerbaijani, celebrating nature and royal power. The palace was set within the fortified Shaki Khan Castle, which was constructed earlier, in the mid-18th century, primarily for defensive purposes. The castle served as both a military stronghold and the administrative center of the Khanate. It was built on a strategic hillside location, allowing for a commanding view of the surrounding valleys and trade routes. The defensive walls, rising up to 8 meters high and reinforced with watchtowers, were designed to protect the royal family and the population during times of invasion, particularly from Persian and Dagestani attacks. During the 19th century, following the Russian annexation of the Shaki Khanate in 1805, the political significance of the palace and castle began to decline. The Khans lost their authority, and the site gradually transitioned from being a center of governance to a cultural relic of a bygone era. However, its artistic and historical value ensured that it remained preserved. In the 20th century, extensive restoration work was undertaken to protect the delicate woodwork, paintings, and shebeke windows from decay. These conservation efforts were guided by Azerbaijani and international experts to maintain the authenticity of the original design. The complex gained even greater recognition in 2019 when the historic center of Shaki, including the Khan's Palace, was inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List, acknowledging its outstanding universal value as an example of traditional urban planning and architecture in harmony with nature. Today, the Shaki Khan's Palace and the remnants of the castle stand as open-air museums and major tourist attractions. The palace continues to enchant visitors with its artistry, while the castle walls and towers offer panoramic views. The Albanian temple in Kish village, near Shaki in Azerbaijan, is one of the oldest Christian monuments in the Caucasus and a remarkable witness to the region's complex history. Locals often call it the Church of St. Eliseus, Elishe, or Saint Elisha, and it is commonly believed to have been founded in the 1st century AD, which makes it among the earliest Christian sites in Caucasian Albania. Archaeological evidence suggests that even before Christianity, the site of Kish may have been used for cultic or ritual purposes. Some finds go as far back as the Bronze Age. The building has seen many phases of construction and reconstruction. Thick walls, some of the oldest parts, likely date to the 5th to 6th centuries. Other parts, such as the cupola, upper walls, roof, show features from later centuries, including a period of refurbishment in the 19th century. In the early 2000s, with help from Norway, including the Norwegian humanitarian enterprise and explorer-ethnographer Thor Heyerdahl, as well as local academic and conservation institutions, a restoration project was launched. It involved detailed archaeological study, removal of later additions that did not belong to the original structure, and efforts to restore it to something closer to its early medieval appearance. The restoration was more or less complete by 2003. Today, the temple no longer functions as an active church in the religious sense. Instead, it has been turned into a museum, often called the Museum of Caucasian Albania. Inside, visitors can see archaeological finds, burial remains, and artifacts from different periods, Bronze Age ceramics, glass-covered graves with skeletons, various items uncovered during excavation work. It is open to tourists. Admission is modest, about 2 Azerbaijani manats, as per local tourism sources, which makes visiting accessible. The present scenario is one where this temple is part of a broader effort by Azerbaijan to preserve its multicultural and multi-religious heritage. The State Tourism Agency cultural heritage bodies, together with international partners, are involved in restoration and protection of such monuments. The temple lies within the heritage zone connected to Shaki's historic center, including the palace of Shaki Khans, caravanserais, old houses, mosques, etc., which was recognized as a UNESCO World Heritage Site in 2019 as Historic Center of Shaki with a Khan's Palace. As part of Shaki's Yukhari Bash, Upper Head, National Historical Architectural Reserve, the Albanian temple is slated for further restoration and reuse for cultural purposes. There have been efforts to restore facades, strengthen foundations, maintain authenticity in repairing with traditional materials and techniques. The site draws interest not only from tourists curious about early Christianity and Caucasus history, but also from scholars of archaeology, architecture, religious studies. Its location in Kish village, about 5 kilometers from Shaki, makes it reasonably easy to access. The surrounding village adds to the atmosphere, cobbled or winding roads, traditional local architecture, and a serene mountain valley setting. There are legends and local traditions tied to the temple. For instance, in earlier times people attributed miracles or special properties to certain stones there. In some stories, offerings or coins are placed.
The city of Shaki in Azerbaijan carries a quiet charm that slowly unfolds as you walk through its winding streets. Shaded lanes and centuries-old courtyards, set against the lush foothills of the Greater Caucasus, it feels like a town suspended in time, neither hurried by the pace of modernity nor untouched by it. The air itself feels lighter here, scented faintly with forest greenery and the warmth of sun-baked stone walls. Shaki has long been known as a cultural crossroads, shaped by the merchants, scholars, and artisans who passed through the Silk Road, leaving behind a blend of influences that still echo in its architecture, cuisine, and daily rhythms. What makes Shaki particularly inviting is its relaxed, lived-in atmosphere. Life moves gently. In the mornings, the town stirs quietly as locals gather in tea houses, exchanging greetings over glasses of strong black tea. The streets near the historic center are lined with old houses featuring high, sloping roofs designed to withstand heavy mountain rains, and many of these homes have been preserved with loving care. Walking through the town, you notice how harmoniously the old coexists with the new. Modern shops tucked into antique buildings, small cafes operating beside centuries-old caravanserais, and markets that feel both timeless and contemporary. One of Shaki's defining features is its landscape. The green backdrop of the mountains enhances the city's calmness, making it feel almost like a sanctuary. During the summer months, the town becomes particularly vibrant, drawing visitors who come to experience the cool mountain breezes and the cultural richness that Shaki is known for. While travelers often speak of its historic palaces and caravanserais, many describe Shaki less by its landmarks and more by the feeling it leaves behind, a sense of warmth, ease, and authenticity. Yet to truly understand Shaki, one must look at its artistic soul, which becomes especially visible in its traditional arts and crafts. For centuries, the city has been a center of craftsmanship, and this legacy remains one of its most treasured aspects. The last part of Shaki's story is deeply intertwined with the skills and creativity of its artisans, whose work continues to define the town's identity. Shaki is widely known for its distinctive stained glass art called shebek, a masterpiece of craftsmanship that involves assembling thousands of small pieces of colored glass into intricate wooden lattice designs, without using nails or glue. This technique requires extraordinary precision and patience, and the resulting windows glow like mosaics when sunlight passes through them. These shebek windows decorate many historic buildings in Shaki, most famously the Shaki Khan's palace, where the delicate interplay of wood and glass transforms the interior into a kaleidoscope of colors. Watching a shebek artist at work is like witnessing a centuries-old tradition being carefully breathed into life. The city is also known for its silk production, a heritage that dates back to the Silk Road era. For many generations, Shaki's silk workshops produced fine textiles admired across the region. The craft involves everything from silkworm cultivation to spinning and dyeing, and although the scale has changed over time, the tradition persists. Shaki's famous silk scarves and shawls often feature elegant patterns inspired by nature and folklore, making them both beautiful and meaningful cultural artifacts.